the stock market, meaning companies, new highs.
I'm not fucking leaving. The show goes on. They're nuts. They know nothing.
An online network called Internet.
Well, it's very hip to be on the internet right now.
Welcome, my degenerates. The rest of your life starts right now on Market Mania, the no bullshit show about all financial markets, including Bitcoin, NFTs, and the largest casino in the world, the U.S. stock market. Today on Market Mania, we have a special guest, Jason Less, CEO of Riot Blockchain. That is a NASDAQ publicly traded company right here, a CEO right here on Market Mania. Jason, thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
Now, Matt, just be quiet for the next 30 minutes or so. I got this. So now, Jason, can you just quickly tell us, Riot Blockchain, a lot of people have heard of it, but what do you guys do?
Sure. Riot Blockchain, one of the first NASDAQ listed companies focused on the Bitcoin space. Today, Riot is one of the largest publicly traded Bitcoin miners. We are 100% focused on Bitcoin mining. Riot's a believer in Bitcoin. It's a very exciting part of our future. And one of the ways that we want to support that industry is through participating in mining, participating in Bitcoin's consensus system. Most specifically, as a US company, we want to drive the growth of Bitcoin mining in the United States. We view a growing adoption of Bitcoin by individuals and institutions in the United States as that should be met with mining in this area as well. There's a lot of people use the concentration of hash rate in China as a criticism of Bitcoin. I think that criticism is far overstated, but I think it's important for Bitcoin's decentralization to have it spread across the world. So, as a jurisdiction where there's a lot of Bitcoin users, a lot of Bitcoin holders, the United States, we want to drive the growth of the Bitcoin network in that area.
So this is a question that I've had for a few years. I'm really happy you came on the show. So does Riot Blockchain, is the goal to stack more Bitcoins or is the goal to stack more US dollars? Do you guys hold Bitcoin as a treasury management strategy?
Yes, we do hold Bitcoin. We don't have a policy that says, we're holding X percent of Bitcoin on our balance sheet. But historically, we have been mining Bitcoin and holding that on our balance sheet. In the past, we have made sales on a discretionary basis here and there, as the balance sheet called for driving expenses. But our focus, as of recently, has just been to continue to increase stacking Bitcoin.
Quick question about some nerd stuff. Now, I'm a big Bitcoin nerd, as you may or may not know. I mean, I got Bitcoin on my shoes. I mean, I literally have them on my shoes. But so now the electricity, we're always in the mining game. You're always worried about that calculation. Can it be profitable based? And with the main cost, of course, there's essentially two components. Can you get the latest specialized hardware that is going to mine at an efficient rate? And can you get energy cheap enough? How does Riot get energy in? I believe you guys are in New York, where this big mining farm is. How do you get it cheap?
So you're absolutely right. Energy is the largest cost of production for Bitcoin mining. Depending on your other costs, that's 80% plus of the expense you have for producing Bitcoin. There are some parts of the world where energy is close to free. That is very rare. There's not a whole lot of free energy, and that's why Bitcoin was designed to consume energy, because it was a source that was not forgeable. It's not something that people could copy or get for free. It was the idea of proof of work mining is people put skin in the game and when participating in consensus. So I think there's an idea out there from a lot of people that China or Russia just has this mountains of free energy all over the place that miners are getting. It's not really the case. I think what we're starting to see is a lot more players in the US market mining Bitcoin. And I think that should demonstrate to a lot of people that there are very competitive energy costs in the United States. And where you rarely find these is stranded renewable energy. I mean, this is how markets work. Where there's an excess supply of something, the price of that thing tends to go down. So Riot's current operations are located at CoinMint LLC's facility located in upstate New York. And this particular area, Zone D of the New York ISO, this particular area was previously an aluminum smelting plant, which has a lot of similarities to Bitcoin mining. Requires a large amount of energy, requires cheap energy, and requires infrastructure for cooling the machinery inside. So what you find in this particular zone of the New York ISO is an abundance of different low emission sources. There's a lot of hydroelectric energy up there. There's a lot of nuclear energy up there. And the result is very competitive energy cost.
I'm sure you guys
the generation cost.
There's the energy cost of things like solar, it just plummeting. I just see the panel prices plummeting. I'm out here on an island where it's always sunny and windy. So we're just constantly looking at the prices of these renewables. And I'm sure you guys have thought about it. I'm sure there's been some higher level discussion, but you know, some of the nerds, we always talk about, well, what if you could grab some miners and just run it on the sun? Like, what if you could just make a solar farm? Is that in the realm of possibility yet? Or have you guys explored that, going some crazy renewable mine?
The way I would answer that is looking at kind of the recent strategic initiative that we announced, and that is acquiring a company called Windstone US located in Texas. That's a transaction we're expecting to close this quarter. Windstone derives its energy from the ERCOT energy grid, which has a lot of renewable energy like you're talking about. The cost of solar generation is going down, and there's more and more solar generation being set up in ERCOT. A lot of those projects are in queue in that market. Obviously, the sun doesn't shine 24 hours a day. Texas will get pretty good capacity factor for solar energy given its environment, but you're really getting, useful solar, 20, 25, 30% of the day. So those other hours of the day, if you want to be an efficient miner, you want to be running a lot more hours out of the day. So you need to drive your energy from other sources. But what you're talking about, though, we see people doing that strategy with less efficient miners. Riot has a very latest generation fleet of Bitcoin mining hardware, so we can be efficient in lots of different energy prices. So we want to run our equipment 24 hours a day, or close to 24 hours a day. What you're talking about is interesting for older generation hardware. If someone had, S9s tend to still be pretty profitable, but if you had mining hardware that was not as efficient, you could have a solar farm to power that mining equipment, and it only runs during the parts of the day where the sun is shining. I think that's very interesting. And I touched on, we see that with, you can see that with wind operations as well. And you can see that with natural gas flaring as well. Miners, capture that gas where it's available and flare off and get very low energy costs. But at a large scale with a large fleet with efficient hardware, we're trying to run as many hours of the day as possible.
So Jason, along those lines, you guys announced about a month ago you purchased 42,000 Bitmain, or you're in a purchase agreement to purchase 42,000 Bitmain Antminers. Okay, so here's my question. As a layman, I don't know much about the miners and the technology. How do you buy 42,000 miners today or in the next year, let's say, and not think that 2 years down the road those will be obsolete, or there'll be so many better miners in the market? How does that work? Do these things, recycle themselves? What's the longevity of these miners? And because I know you're paying $3,300 a piece per miner, so this is a huge investment. How does that all work?
Sure. So if you look back at the history of Bitcoin mining hardware, or ASICs specifically, we've seen the efficiencies improve over time. So hardware has become outdated and non-competitive as time goes on. But what we're seeing is those improvements slowing down. Ultimately, the rules of physics limit to how little energy you can use to produce a hash. And because of that, Bitcoin mining hardware is starting to last longer and longer. The S9, which is the former workhouse that Bitmain produced, that came out in 2016. So almost 5 years ago, the S9 was released. And if you have a low enough energy cost, which is available in the United States, that machine is still profitable for you today. And the improvements are just slowing down. I'm not going to say right now we're purchasing the S19, and that really feels like the new S9, the new kind of workhorse generation from Bitmain. And I'm sure more hardware will come out that's more efficient than that down the line. But the improvements are slowing down. This is an investment we're making, looking years and years down the line.
So what do you think the lifespan of the S19 is? Like at what point does it become marginally less productive and not worth running?
That's not something we can really project today, because that just depends on what market conditions look like in the future. That depends on what's the price of Bitcoin in the future relative to what the competition in Bitcoin mining looks like. My general thesis is that the improvements in hardware are slowing down, and the S9 lasting almost 5 years now, I think is a good signal for what the opportunity for the S19 is for years to come.
Right. So you guys have 42,000 miners you ordered. You probably have like 40,000 already. I think I read something like that. And then I think I also read that you guys only have 6 employees. Is that correct?
So in terms of miners, you're talking about deployed miners and ordered miners. That whole fleet totals about 84,000 machines. So growing very rapidly. We've entered into a number of purchase agreements like the one we're discussing here, and these are resulting in Riot receiving thousands of miners a month, for a few months now, and that will continue through October 2022. As far as our employees, at our last report, we disclosed 8 full-time employees. However, currently, our hardware is hosted at CoinMint, and that is a company that's providing all the on-the-ground service.
So they have so when these things break, they have the guys that go in and fix them. You don't have to deal with that.
Right. So that's what the manpower is driving the operations there. However, we're acquiring Winstone US, and that company has approximately 100 employees, amazingly talented infrastructure development team, experts at developing Bitcoin mining infrastructure. So when that transaction closes, we will be gaining 100 employees.
Do you post an ROI on the stuff that you're buying? Like I remember it used to be way back in the day, it used to be like a 13-month, 9 to 13-month kind of time horizon was about where it was. This is almost a decade old data that's in my head though. Do you have that, or is that when making a big purchase like that, firing out a 9-digit number at Bitmain, you call up Jihan, you're like, hey, I think we're going to make it back, but you run the number on the back of the napkin there? Probably a little bit more intense than that.
So Bitmain prices their machine. They have their own strategy for pricing this machine, and I believe it's relative to what the payback period is under kind of market average assumptions for production cost. Obviously we look at this stuff internally. We have our own internal models, so we don't have a kind of ROI period that we are saying that we expect, but we analyze these purchases very closely. It's a large sum of money. It's a decision that a lot of thought goes into.
Do you have like a place in the old office there from like dead mining companies? Like you have some Butterfly Labs stuff there. I don't know if you go back that far, but I remember the big BFL. They had the pitchforks. Do you guys do that with your customers? Do you make fun of your investors with foam pitchforks? If you remember that old school part, the beginning, that was the beginning of ASICs.
All the different machines that would come out and not exist or not work, etc.
The Butterfly Labs was a famous scam that they had one of the first ASICs, and then they would mine them themselves before sending them. They would take a bunch of money in pre-orders, and then they would mine them themselves instead of sending them right to the customers. And then they got all pissed. It's our 2012 stuff in the Bitcoin. There it is. Thank you, Tony. Okay. That's really good. I'm just saying for some office decoration, let me just suggest one of those. It would just be good.
Tony, before you jump in, I have one question related to this for Jason. So a lot of our viewers want to know. So you guys do mining. A lot of our viewers do trading of Bitcoin. Some do mining at home. Do you think that there's a way for these guys at home to maybe invest $10,000 in a miner, a couple miners at home on their home computer, buy a new mining computer, and actually print money at home? Is that a viable product for someone using this normal electric grid?
I think generally not. I mean, I think you find certain points in the market where the price of Bitcoin has grown much faster than the network wide hash rate has. The mining competition and difficulty has grown. So you reach a point where margins in mining become higher. That's kind of what we're seeing recently. The price has gone up a ton, but network wide hash rate has not gone up a corresponding amount because, quite frankly, there's just not enough Bitcoin mining hardware out there for everyone. So there might be some market conditions where with a high residential power cost, you could be profitable at mining, but I mean, generally not. You look at BitUda did a research report almost a year ago on the power cost curve for mining, and about the 50% percentile saw costs, between 2 and 3 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's the average cost that miners are probably paying for power, and no residential power is around that. I mean, I'm not even sure what the nationwide average is, but I imagine it's over 10 cents a kilowatt hour.
Oh, wow, okay.
Here in California, I'm paying 15 cents a kilowatt hour, or something like that. So under the right conditions, it might work for a little bit, but I wouldn't say that's a good long-term strategy unless you're somehow getting free power. And even then, these people want to mine at home in their apartment or office because they know they get free power. Sounds like a good idea. Then you get this machine, and it is loud and it is hot, and it is not a comfortable thing to live live with. So definitely look at that closely before you decide to enter that.
Good advice to our viewers out there.
Got a buddy of mine. Shout to Reggie out there. He has an Ethereum miner, I think from like 4 years ago, and he uses it to heat his basement when it gets cold up there in the north in the winter. And he says it is hot. It gets hot. I think only 8 or 9 GPUs or something, but he says it cooks. Tony, the producer, thank you for joining your own show.
Hey, anytime. Look, Jason, I just wanted to point out this fun little tidbit in your bio here. It mentioned, additionally, you were used as a human benchmark in the man versus machine poker competition against the Cloudico AI. Now, that's where you and I first met. I was running the production company that was filming that competition. That was a riot. I just thought it's, no pun intended, I just thought that was so cool. Now, my question, I guess, is both AI and mining rigs need a lot of the same thing, which is semiconductors. And we're looking at a global shortage of semiconductors, the full consequences of which we've yet to even begin to feel. So I'm wondering how you're factoring that into your future plans and how the mining industry in general is going to shift facing that down.
Well, I think first and foremost that those conditions around the constricted supply of integrated circuits is restricting the supply of new Bitcoin mining hardware. Which makes it fortuitous to us that we invest so much in Bitcoin mining hardware, starting a year ago, entering into all these long-term purchase agreements that we're now receiving. Because of that, we've been able to supply, and we can set up and have growth in our hash rate in a time when it's challenging. So there's certainly a worldwide shortage in semiconductors that hasn't stopped the production of Bitcoin hardware completely. I think it's increasing the cost somewhat. I think it's not the supply is less than what it probably otherwise would be. But what we do is we just stay, I think, close to the ground. We have a very good relationship with Bitmain. Obviously, we're one of their largest customers. Evaluating opportunities with them, and looking at the market as a whole all the time. I think when you have limited supply of Bitcoin mining hardware, it just makes each more strategic and more important. You want to secure a good amount of hash rate, but you don't want to pay too much for it. So we spend a lot of energy and time on this. But it's important to our goal. Our goal is to be one of the largest Bitcoin miners in the world, and we're trying to increase the hash rate in the United States. So to do that, we have to grow our hash rate. So we'll look at every opportunity we can to do that, and carefully evaluate if that's a an initiative that works for Riot.
Jason, let me ask a question about the Bitmain relationship, because I remember, again, just sort of some of the old school stories where as soon as, I think it was for GPU mining, but as soon as they were ready, there were buyers that would pay to fly them so that they could just immediately they would rent like a 747 just so they could get their miners on the network as fast as possible. I assume the logistics have just matured greatly since then. Do you have, like, when you buy from Bitmain, do you have, like, I mean, obviously you're hyper incentivized to get these things in and plugged in and mining as soon as possible. Is it like some James Bond shit that you do now to get them there fast?
I think the industry has matured where there's a number of different reputable logistics companies we engage with to handle this kind of stuff. Lately, the trend has been to order a lot of hardware, you have to place an order that you are not going to receive months down the line. So we're receiving miners right now that we ordered back in August 2020. Bitcoin market wasn't as hot back then, but thank God we did, because now Bitcoin's gone up like crazy. This hardware has become a lot more valuable. I think machines that we bought back then for like $2,200 a machine on average are trading on the secondary market at like $10,000 a machine right now. So pretty remarkable what's happened in the Bitcoin mining hardware market. But when the machines are ready, yes, we try to get them here as fast as possible. There's very large scale reputable logistics companies that handle that. We don't have to go get the 747 ourselves.
You don't just FedEx it and just go for like extra fast shipping, and it's probably a little bit more. I just assume.
No.
Yeah, that's crazy. Have you ever thought about dumping these? I mean, you get to order a bunch for $2,000, dump for 10. I mean, that's not in the Riot Blockchain playbook.
The Riot Blockchain playbook is increasing our hash rate and mining more Bitcoin. So I see more opportunity in holding these machines than selling them.
Do you sell I mean, it's it's such a crazy calculation to get more Bitcoin, but then you have to buy more miners. So you have to sell Bitcoin to buy miners, and then just try to constantly, I guess. I mean, it's how does that work for Riot? I mean, you have to sell Bitcoin at some points?
So Riot, as we've been talking about, is a NASDAQ listed company, and Riot's very fortunate to have a very liquid stock. You look at our 30-day average trading volume, you're looking at like approximately 28 million shares trading per day, which is phenomenal to see that huge volume. So because of that, combined with the NASDAQ listing, combined with the transparency and financial reporting that we have a very efficient access to capital. And over the past 24 months or so, Riot has operated an at the market offering program from time to time, raising money in the market. So we have been financing these miner purchase orders by raising money in the market and using that to grow our business. And it's it's a strategy that I think worked out very well for us over the time. The market seems to be interested in Bitcoin. People seem to be interested in getting exposure to Bitcoin mining. We have been using our NASDAQ listing to raise capital and focus that into growing Bitcoin mining operations.
So do you have a relationship with a trading desk, or do you guys sell the Bitcoin in-house? Like, do you physically go onto a exchange and sell it yourself, or have like a Goldman trading desk, Morgan, that does it for you?
So we utilize a firm when we have sold Bitcoin, which has not been any time recently. We utilize a firm to assist us with that. It's not logging on to Coinbase or anything like that.
You can just call Michael Saylor. Just call Michael Saylor. Be like, you guys need more? Just him and Elon. Just start a Telegram group.
I don't want to sell Bitcoin. I mean, I can't. The future may call for a balance sheet decision to have to sell some, but I would certainly hope not. I'm interested in mining Bitcoin and holding Bitcoin. I'm a believer. We're believers at Riot.
It's awesome. It's good stuff.
So everybody pretty much agrees that this whole Bitcoin thing is just kind of a passing fad, really. I guess I'm wondering when you're going to sell all this crap and ape into Doge, because that's really what people want to know.
It's so tough sometimes being the Bitcoin guy, in your social group, because stuff like Dogecoin starts taking off, and then your friends are asking you, oh, hey, what do you think about this? And, my response at like 2-3 cents a coin is like, dude, don't worry about this. Like, this is just like a meme coin. And then it goes to 65 cents and, I just look like an idiot. So I'm not a trader. I'm an investor in things I believe in, things I have a long-term belief in. And, that's Bitcoin. So when I have people come to me interested in Dogecoin or Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency, I just tell people, hey, look into this for yourself and decide if this is a long-term investment you want to make.
Any plans to fire off on any other cryptos, Ethereum, anything else catch the eye? It's Riot Blockchain, not Riot Bitcoin. Is there anything else that may be mined up in the future?
Riot is the Bitcoin company. We are focused on Bitcoin and only Bitcoin.
All right. Okay. No, but not BCH. Can't get you to mine some BCH, even if the hash rate is preferable?
No.
All right. No Ethereum, no Bitcoin, a maximalist company. You're going to love the Jason Lops out there, and the block streams of the world are going to love you. Going to love you. And this has been great, Jason. Thank you very, very much for coming on and talking about Bitcoin, a pure play Bitcoin mining company on the NASDAQ, which is how many? There's not that many. You're fairly unique, right, at this stage?
There's only a handful. I mean, there's a number of Bitcoin mining companies on the TSXV, TSX. There's some OTC traded ones in the United States, and really just a handful of NASDAQ ones. But I think we're seeing that grow. I think it was just this morning that Bitfarms, a TSX listed company, announced they're going to be on NASDAQ. So I'm sure there's other companies trying to go public. It's an exciting time. People want to be on the NASDAQ.
You can sort by Bitcoin on balance sheets. I forget where they had that, but I know Riot ranks towards the top. I think MicroStrategy is still the ape in the room, if you will, and then Tesla, and then I think Riot's top 5 in terms of. And there's a Canadian one that makes the list there, but that list is growing, and you guys are that's good. That's awesome.
Jason, thanks a lot for coming on the show. And Micah, we got to have Jason back on when Bitcoin either breaks 100,000 or 20,000.
Please.
And we got to see where the business is and see how things are going.
One of those two. Let's do it.
Please. Thank you very much. And remember, kids, quit poker and do something else. Just quit poker. Don't do it if you're still a poker player. Just go out there in the world and start a NASDAQ. Just be the CEO of a NASDAQ company or something. There's better stuff out there, kids. Thank you, Jason. Thank you for joining us. The CEO of Riot Blockchain. This marks the first NASDAQ CEO to be on Market Mania. It's a great one to have. Matt Lance, there is no pick of the day today. Sorry, that's all you guys get today. And we're going to leave you with one from, it only makes sense on a day like today, from the 888 Nate and his Digital Gold song, which was, of course, the Bitcoin banger from the last the last bull run there, but it's still an amazing one. 88 Nate, Digital Gold, and it goes something like this. A, you got the digital, you do the digital dash. You do the digital dash. I do the digital cash. I want my shit to the moon. I'm trying to get to the bag. You taking pictures to brag. I'm trying to buy some land though. Billy D in Star Wars, I'm just trying to land dough. Like and subscribe to this show right here on YouTube and give us the follow on TikTok and Twitter at Market Mania Show. We will see you next week if there is a next week. But for now, it's lights out.
I never sleep if I don't have my medicine. I never sleep if I don't have my medicine. I never sleep if I don't have. I never sleep. I never sleep if I don't have my medicine. Time to right the wrong. So your hands in the air if you like the song. If you're going over there, take it twice as long. Last time ain't talking about Tylenol. Oh, I bet you'd like to know. You can come around the way if you're trying to go. If you want to switch lanes for a pot of gold, or a domino, out of control. The usual. Get mad cause I'm looking at your girl. Switch it up. I do it so much louder than everything you've heard. Everybody heard got the word that the world wasn't turning. Act like you're in a jury. Power of attorney where I would turn it. Can't lie like it's Mississippi burning. Don't act like you're in a daze. I imagine it'll look the other way. Couldn't clear space on my mind. Was afraid of the time strobe light. Like